Have you ever clicked on a website and then left that website shortly after that because the website felt like it was stuck in reverse because it took too long to load? I know I have. When a website doesn't load quickly, it's kind of like a red flag to me. And for the most part, I pretty much leave immediately. Well, if your patients are experiencing this when they visit your website, they're probably bouncing or leaving off of your website as well, which means this could be costing you money. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Refractive Revenue Podcast, where we give refractive surgeons and practice managers like you actionable tips and advice to help you generate more leads, book more consultations, and drive more revenue. I'm your host, Eric Barbour, and today we're going to be discussing why site speed matters and what you can do to speed up your website. So let's jump right into it. Now, here's the first thing I want to make clear. Google doesn't always tell us exactly how its algorithm works or what goes into ranking well. It's kind of a complicated formula, but we absolutely know that site speed is very important for a website. It's so important that Google has actually made it a ranking factor, and they've told us as much. So we know that in order for your practice to rank well, site speed or an enhanced site speed is one thing that you absolutely have to get right in order to achieve the type of rankings that you want to achieve for your practice. So a couple of steps I want to go through of what you need to do to make sure your site speed is where it needs to be. So the first thing or first step that I want to cover is the first thing you need to do is determine if your site speed is an issue for your practice. So the way to do that is head on over to the link listed here on this page, and I will actually have a link in the notes below. So what you want to do is head on over to this link and copy and paste your website on this page to see if it loads quickly or not. This is actually a free tool provided by Google called Page Speed Insights. And it's going to tell you how fast your website loads, and it will also give you some pointers on what you need to do in order to speed up your website. And here's a quick tip while you're there. Also take a look at some of the competitors in your market, right? Look at the folks who are ranking higher than you and maybe a couple of competitors that are ranking lower than you. Copy and paste their website address as well on this Page Speed Insights page, and see how you stack up. See how you compare against people in your own market, and then kind of extrapolate some information or some data based on how your competitors are ranking versus their site speed and how you're ranking versus your site speed. Good information to have. Step number 2 is to consider using the Google AMP or AMP framework. And AMP just stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages. And the reason this is important is because the vast majority of people that are going to be visiting your website are going to be visiting using a mobile device. In fact, if memory serves me correctly, upwards of 60% of visitors that visit your site are going to be doing so on a mobile device. And I think it's actually 61% to be exact. That's an overwhelming majority, right? And so AMP is just going to streamline your site and make the pages on your website load quickly when it's viewed from a mobile device. So it just makes good sense to make sure you're following those types of protocols. Step number 3 is consider using a content delivery network. This is also known as a CDN. And I apologize. I know I'm throwing a lot of acronyms at you. We were just talking about AMP. Now we're talking about CDN. But just bear with me because all of these things are important. And a CDN will take your website and replicate it on multiple servers so that your website loads quickly and efficiently. Right. Think of it kind of as your website in multiple places. So no matter where someone is searching from, your website is, quote unquote, close to where they are. So that will help it load quickly. That's a simplistic explanation. But CDN can also help with your website security and your uptime as well. Step number 4 is to make sure you've installed a caching plugin on your website. This is, of course, assuming you're using a WordPress site. And think of caching as the server saving copies of the pages on your website so that when someone who's already been to your website comes back to visit again, it doesn't have to, start from scratch when it's loading the page, right? This is going to allow pages on your website to load much quicker, because think of it as just kind of taking a copy or a photograph, if you will, of your page, so that when you come back, that image is ready and it can just show it to that visitor again. Again, the end result is faster load speeds, which increases your overall site speed. Step number 5 is to make sure that you've optimized the images on your website. Large image files can take a long time to load, so the goal is to resize and compress any and all images on your site without sacrificing quality. The 2 file types we normally recommend are PNG or JPEG file types. They're most easily compressed and every browser supports them. PNG is generally going to be a higher file quality than a JPEG. But quite frankly, I can't ever really tell the difference between a PNG or a JPEG. And a JPEG is generally always going to be a smaller file size. So oftentimes, to the naked eye, you could get away with using JPEG files instead of PNGs if possible. And that's going to really help increase load times, and it'll make those images load quicker because the files are smaller. So make sure you use these file types when you're saving images on your website. The next step is to limit the number of plugins and any other extra elements you have on your website. In general, the more of these plugins or elements that you have on the website, the longer your load times are going to be. So you want to get rid of as many of these as possible, assuming that you don't need them, right? It's easy to keep adding plugin after plugin on your website, and a lot of these things are very powerful. But periodically, run through a check to see if some of the plugins or elements on your website are even necessary at all. Right? A lot of times things are updated. You begin using, say, a different SEO plugin, and you still got the other SEO plugin on your website. But bottom line, if things that are on your website that don't need to be there, just do a scan. Have your developer or whichever team manages your website periodically go through a scan, see what's needed, see what's not. If it's not needed, just simply remove them. And finally, be sure you have the right host that is hosting your website. You know, what I've found is that all hosts aren't created equal. And there are many hosts out there that offer fantastic pricing. And quite frankly, you may not even know who your host is, because it may be, you know, hosted through whoever is your marketing team or the folks who develop your website. But all hosts aren't created equal. Some hosts have unbelievably low prices, but oftentimes, you know, that old adage always applies. You get what you pay for. So do your due diligence so that you find the right combination of speed, uptime, security, and of course, price. We know the bottom line appeals to everyone, but again, you don't always get what you pay for. There's some fantastic hosts out there. You know, the host that we use for our website is absolutely fantastic. The speeds are out of this world. The uptime is out of this world. But the bottom line is that site speed matters, and the type of host, or not the type of host, the actual host that you're using can have a significant impact on how fast your site is loading. Something you always want to be cognizant of. So please take a look at that and see if it factors in to your site speed at all. Well, that's it for this episode, and thanks for tuning in. If you like today's show, I really appreciate it if you liked, followed, and shared it. It really helps us grow the channel and reach new listeners. And if site speed is a topic that's on your mind, but you need some help determining what you need to do or how to improve your site speed, give us a call. We would love to help. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you on the next episode.